Twisted Metal has been a radio silent franchise that we haven't heard much from since its PlayStation 3 entry in 2012, but with the new TV show coming out soon, I thought I'd make this video reflecting on the franchise. Being a fan of the Twisted Metal series for the past couple of years, I'm glad the IP is being revived with this new show, and hopefully we'll see a new release in the future, but before then, I want to give Twisted Metal the retrospective it deserves by looking at the history of Twisted Metal and how it's evolved. David Jaffe, Twisted Metal's co-creator and co-designer, started working at Sony in 1993 as a playtester, whilst working on his own film and TV projects. In late 1994, Jaffe visited Evans and Sutherland, pioneers of 3D graphics, to see if they wanted to work on new PlayStation titles. When returning to California, Jaffe, along with Mike Guillaume and Alan Becker, who both worked at Sony ImageSoft, were driving through heavy LA traffic, and during the frustration, one of them said how awesome it would be to be able to plow through all of the traffic. This is where they got the idea for a new game. With a small team of 15 designers and a budget of $750,000, 11 months to design the game, they started playing a ton of Mario Kart, Doom, and Mortal Kombat to help understand what they were going for. The original name for Twisted Metal was Urban Assault, but because Microsoft already had a game with that name, they weren't able to use it until a consultant producer suggested the name Twisted Metal. And just like that, a cult classic series was born. This is it. The classic, the original, the beginning, and the clunkiest controls ever. But before I start whinging, let's talk about the story of Twisted Metal 1. Every year since 1995 in the city of Los Angeles, a powerful man by the name of Calypso holds the Twisted Metal tournament, where a select group of contestants are pulled into cities, highways, and small towns to battle in Mad Max-style vehicles to the death. And the contestant who wins the tournament is granted one wish. No matter the size, cost, or even if it fits into the bounds of reality, Calypso must grant it. Let's meet the contestants. We've got a sleep paralysis demon, an angry man wearing a laser tag vest, meth head McDonald's, and white kid with sunglasses. After you select a contestant, you start off in a one-on-one battle to help understand the fundamentals of the game, the controls, the weapons, and the movement. Which yes, the driving mechanics are clunky, but because this is the first game in the series, you can't hate on it too much. The levels are actually really nice in the game, and honestly, they feel the most realistic and grounded in the entire series. This game is quite short as well. I managed to beat the game in around 45 minutes, but I will admit it did take me a few tries. I had to use the final level code a couple of times before I was even able to beat the game, and that was on easy mode. That is because I do suck at Twisted Metal games, especially the early ones, but it didn't really impact my enjoyment of the game. It's actually really cool to see how far this series has come since this game, and after beating all of the levels, you get a final boss fight against last year's winner, Minion, on a rooftop, and fuck me, this battle is tough. He throws everything at you, and also it's very easy to fly off the rooftops due to the hard drifting.
Are you fucking kidding me?
He is a great and challenging final boss for the game though, and it really does feel like a triumphant ending for the entire tournament. After beating the game just kind of cuts to text that you won, and a text scroll explaining the ending, with it ending off with your character driving off into the night. I mean, sure, the endings are cool and help develop the characters a bit more, and it's cool to see the results of each contestant's wish, but there's honestly not a lot to the endings, and I feel like there is something missing from these. Anyway, Twisted Metal 2. Taking place a year after the first game, Twisted Metal 2 follows the same premise of a group of contestants duking it out in high-octane combat to get a wish from Calypso. And while this game is a significant improvement from the first with the story and characters, the game really shines in its endings and the controls. The fact they improved this game so much in just under a year is absolutely crazy. And I can completely understand why this game is regarded as one of the best Twisted Metal games. However, I absolutely suck at this game. Comparing the difficulty of Twisted Metal 2 to Twisted Metal 1 is crazy. Twisted Metal 2 is so much harder than the first game. I could set it to easy, but I'm pretty sure in the second game, if you get halfway through after beating Minion, the game just tells you can't get to the ending. You only get the first half of the game until you set it to a higher difficulty. Which, considering I'm already eating shit on easy mode, I can't imagine it's any better putting it on normal. Alright, but here we are anyway, the final level. After beating all of the contestants in this level, you know, unless you use the cheat code, you face off against Darktooth, aka Charlie Kane, aka the father of Sweet Tooth, who wants revenge for his son who you killed during the tournament. Before I get comments about it, I just want to make it clear I did not skip through the entire game and just go straight to the ending. I did try out all of the levels in the game with the use of passwords, and I'm sorry, I do just suck at this game. And I swear to God, I would lose all my lives in either one level and then get mag dumped within the first couple of minutes of the next level. I've put off making this video for a while now, and I honestly did not have time to learn Twisted Metal 2 in depth, but it is something I really want to try and do. But anyway, Darktooth, fuck this boss fight. This is not just a hard boss fight, this is hard as fuck. He's relentless in the first phase, and will fuck you up if you are too close to him. It's pretty much just like a game of cat and mouse, so you kind of have to attack him and drive away a lot during this first half. Also, for some reason in Twisted Metal 2, they remove healing stations and swap them out for health drops, which only heal you a small amount. And the fact after this there's a second phase where you have to fight a flying clown head, it is easier, but oh my god, I did it, guys. I beat Twisted Metal 2. That's all, folks. Oh, for fuck's sake, please take me back to Twisted Metal 2. Please take me back. Now, we do have a new team working on this game. After Single Track stopped working on Twisted Metal, 989 Studios began to work on the Twisted Metal games. So, it could be pretty good. Fuck! The fuck are these 3D models? At least the music's good. Rob Zombie actually works well in the Twisted Metal franchise. Unfortunately, that doesn't make the game any better.
But this Calypso, he's fucking minging. Suck your dad.
It's much easier than 2, but the gameplay is fucking awful. The endings are so shit, and the characters are honestly the most boring in the series. In my opinion, this is the lowest point in the series. At least 4 does something different, which I will go into later, but there's not really much to talk about with Twisted Metal 3. It has the same story of 1 and 2, with contestants fighting to get a wish from Calypso, but it's worse in almost every way. Maybe I can give a little bit of credit to 989, because this is the first Twisted Metal game they made. Or not. Yeah, one of the weird things in this game is its AI in the contestants. Let me explain. Twisted Metal 2 only had health pickups to heal your driver, and it's the same in 3. However, I noticed enemies tend to pick up health drops more. From what I played from Twisted Metal 2, I never saw opponents directly go to pick up health drops. It only ever happened by accident after I knocked them into them. But in 3, they seem to go out of their way to get health drops when their health gets too low. You might call this some extra challenge, but personally, I think it just drags out each level more and more, which isn't good because all of the levels in this game are kind of uninteresting and boring. There are a couple good ones, like the spaceship level and Christmas level, but they do not save this game from, in my opinion, being the worst in the series. And I can't stomach any more of this game. We're moving on to 4. Now we're moving on to what I consider the second worst in the series. 4 took a really weird direction. The characters aren't as bad as 3, but are really just bizarre. At least a lot has changed this time in terms of the story. This time, Sweet Tooth has actually taken over the tournament after taking a power ring from Calypso. Which is weird. In the first 3 games, he seems to have magic powers, but now it's just an inanimate object. I mean, it's not the first time in the series Calypso's powers have changed. I mean, in the second game, he gets his powers from Minion, who works for the devil. But it feels kind of weird to have it just be from a ring rather than just actual magic. But whatever. Despite the absurdity of the story, I actually welcome the approach. At least it's something different, and not only that, but I enjoy the levels and the soundtrack quite a bit more than 3. But one of the strange things about this game is the fact that controls are different. You use triangle and X to accelerate and reverse. It's not too hard to get used to, but it's kind of weird going from the same controls from 1 to 3 to changing it now. And it's really weird to change controls that are synonymous with the series up until this point. At least the driving physics are better, because in 3, you honestly get flipped over like every 5 seconds. I know it seems like I'm praising this game, but I'm only doing that because it's an improvement from 3, which is not saying much at all. It's still weird, kind of uninteresting, and the characters are weird and extremely forgettable. Not to mention, every level in this game ends with a boss fight, so it's kind of tough. It's not as easy as 3. Maybe I should try out some of the other drivers, who knows. Drag Queen. Who's Drag Queen?
This metal thing just ain't for me, girlfriend! But if it means I'm going to finally reach my dream, you know I'd be more than happy to open up a fresh can of whoop-ass on some unsuspecting contestants! Anything to achieve my goal!
After the dumpster fire of 989 Twisted Metal games, the next game in the series would release on the PlayStation 2, an entire new generation of gaming, and it was developed by Incognito Entertainment, which, if you didn't know, was comprised of ex-SingleTrack employees, SingleTrack being the developers of Twisted Metal 1 and 2. I'm not going to speak too soon, but this has the potential of being a very good Twisted Metal game. Holy shit, this game is good. This game is insanely good. Excuse me if I froth over this game a little bit, but it's so amazing to play this game again. It's so much of a darker Twisted Metal game in terms of tone and appearance, with the premise this time around being that the contestants are selected from Blackfield Asylum to participate in the Twisted Metal tournament, and each character has such a unique and compelling story. However, due to the development constraints, a few of the endings were cut down and feel like glorified cutscenes. However, it doesn't change the fact that they are all pretty good, and at least the endings that were cut back only existed behind unlockable characters, which are an absolute treat. They are tricky to find if you don't have a guide, but they do reward the player for going out of their way and explore the maps, by giving them some honestly really good characters. But in all honesty, every character in this game is nice to play as, and that is because of the driving mechanics. The driving mechanics in this game feel flawless. There's no tipping over every 5 seconds like 3, there isn't insane drifting like 1 and 2, and the controls are classic Twisted Metal unlike 4. It truly feels like Incognito was trying to give back to the fans after the disaster of 989 Twisted Metal games. The game's difficulty is perfect as well. Easy mode makes the game extremely easy, go figure, but it will stop you after the minion boss midway through the game, forcing you to set the game to normal if you want to see the ending. Normal mode is tough, but it's also manageable, and hard mode, if you can do it, you are a Twisted Metal veteran. Not only that, but you finally get lives after every level and don't get kicked back to the title screen after losing them all. Thank fucking Christ, we do not have to write down passwords anymore. You can also save after every level in case you want to come back to the game later, and while these components may make the game sound like a cakewalk, trust me, this game not only tests your patience, but also your anger management, trust me. Going back to the story of this game, because of the structure and uniqueness of the story and the characters, it's extremely replayable and interesting. There are 3 segments to each character's storyline. The opening, where we get a vague idea of the contestants' motives. The midway point after beating the minion boss fight, your character will be knocked out after the explosion, and you get a full backstory of their motive for joining the tournament, and what wish they will eventually make. And after beating the end of the game, you see that wish come to fruition. Having that midpoint cutscene to explain the character's drive and motive to win the tournament is an insane benefit to the game. It really helps push the player to see how the ending concludes. And every ending in this game is so good that it makes you want to see all of them, including the secret ending of Minion the game hints to after you beat the game as every character. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to talk about the levels. They feel amazing to play on. Every level feels like such a huge adventure, and they're so well crafted with secrets, bonuses. They're so much fun to explore and also battle on, which makes the game so much more fun to play. And the soundtrack accompanying each level is so awesome. It's very heavy, intense, kind of grindhousey. It really helps set the mood of the game. That's enough meat riding Twisted Metal Black. I need to move on before I'm here all day. Okay, so in a very weird turn after Twisted Metal Black, Incognito went back to the PlayStation 1 for one last Twisted Metal game on the platform. And this time it's a Twisted Metal game for kids. I don't know how we go from a deranged Vietnam War vet with a taste for human flesh to shooting a guy in the ass with a rocket to unlock secret areas. But whatever. Let's point out the elephant in the room. The fact this game is a kid's version of Twisted Metal and that we're battling with remote control cars is a weird one. Honestly, probably even weirder than Twisted Metal 4. Not only that, but this game came out a few months after Black when the PS2 was already out. I'm kind of confused as why they didn't just make the game on the PlayStation 2 with the newer hardware, because it would have really benefited the performance of the game. Maybe it was because kids already had PlayStation 1s and they didn't want parents to have to buy a whole new console. Maybe they thought it would have sold better that way. But that can't really be it. The PlayStation 2 was extremely successful on launch, so who knows. I'm not here to talk about what Incognito were thinking with this game. I'm here to talk about the game itself. So Small Brawl, despite being a weird spin-off, is, in my opinion, one of the most enjoyable, and I enjoy playing it a lot. Not saying it's my favorite Twisted Metal game on the PlayStation 1. Honestly, I'm kind of split between 2 and Small Brawl. 2 does have the significantly better story in my opinion, but the charm and novelty of an RC car-based Twisted Metal game is one that does pay off. The car designs in this game are absolutely amazing, and they have so much good detail in them. One of my favorites being that Sweet Tooth's head on top of the ice cream truck is actually the antenna. It's a small thing, but it's nice. Also the levels, oh my god, the levels. Hot take, but this game overall has my favorite levels in the entire series. They're not all 10s and they're not all perfect, but they include such an unnecessary amount of detail. It adds so much depth to the levels to really make them feel alive. For example, the toaster oven on Easy Death Oven has a health pickup that you can grab, but it will trap you in and kill you immediately if you are not fast enough, adding a bit of risk and reward. The treetop level has so many interactable things on it, like the lawnmower, that you can do a lap around the treehouse to damage any opponents, including yourself, another example of risk and reward. There's also a trampoline in the center of the stage, meaning if you drive off the edge, you'll die, but if you go through the middle, you'll safely land back on the treehouse, which adds some nice strategy if you ever need to escape. The golf course has golf balls you can hit around, and going back to Easy Death Oven, if you shoot a guy fixing the oven in the ass with a rocket, he'll fart it back out, blowing up the center counter, allowing you to grab some extra weapons and power-ups. It's juvenile, but fuck me man, this is a really good Twisted Metal game. However, the physics specifically in this game and the driving is really weird. It's not the worst in the series, but for some reason the cars are extremely floaty and fly off ramps.
Dump the clutch, then just hold it about 3/4, then hit third, then just flatten it, it'll just spin to help my smoke.
It's minor, but it's still very annoying. An annoying aspect I noticed while playing the game was that if you steer while reversing and then try to drive forward and also steer, it takes a second to adjust, and so I'll try and swing my car out of harm's way only to drive myself back into it because the controls haven't adjusted. But other than that, this game doesn't have many major flaws, and it's still one of my favorite in the series. I feel like a lot of people in the Twisted Metal community kind of regurgitate the talking point of Twisted Metal Small Brawl being the worst game in the series, and kind of disregard it without even giving it a chance. It's definitely, in my opinion, the most underrated and overhated in the series. Released on the PSP mid-2005, and in 2008 was ported onto the PlayStation 2 by Eat Sleep Play, dubbed the Extra Twisted version, which is the version I'm using in this segment of video. It's just the same game with more meat on its bones, and more content that I can talk about. Now get ready, because this game is so content-packed, it is crazy. First off, it's made once again by Incognito Entertainment, so my hopes are quite high, and luckily, those hopes are not only met, but surpassed. This game is amazing for so many reasons. To start, this game was basically what Twisted Metal 3 was supposed to be. It ignores Twisted Metal 3 and 4 and follows Twisted Metal 2, thank God. Not only that, but this game uses the same engine as Black, it has a similar UI and similar controls. Now if you thought I was meat riding when talking about Black or Small Brawl, just wait, this is probably one of my favorite Twisted Metal games, but I do have a tough time choosing between either this or Black. But where do I start? This game controls slightly different, but it still controls amazing. The difficulty curve is way more friendly to newer players, and every single level is a huge adventure with so much stuff in them. I honestly found myself not even killing my final opponent because I wanted to see what the rest of the map had in store. Not only that, but you get upgrades from killing opponents, whether it's for your special, rockets, health, or even your machine gun. While this might sound overpowered, you can easily lose these by dying. Also, you don't replenish lives after every level, which was awesome because I lost 2 lives right before the final boss and got stuck fighting Darktooth and Towertooth with only 1 life. I almost used the trade weapons for health cheat until I fucking did it. I beat the game, and in my excitement, like a dumbass, I skipped the final cutscene, which was awesome. But whatever, this game is amazing. It's easy, but still really good. I made it through most of the game without dying once, only having a bit of trouble with the final boss. This game is not just Incognito redeeming classic Twisted Metal after 989 tarnished them, it's a love letter to fans of old Twisted Metal games, giving them a worthy sequel to Twisted Metal 2. But that's only the beginning of the extra twisted version of Head On, and only half of why this game is one of my favourites in the series. You see, if you have the PS2 port, there's actually a lot of bonus content, lots and lots of bonus content. When you boot up the game, you'll get an option to either play Head On or something called Twisted Metal Lost, as well as some more bonus stuff that I will get into later. Selecting Twisted Metal Lost, you'll get a text scroll telling you that Lost is the cancelled sequel to Twisted Metal Black. Something that I didn't know when I started working on this video was the tragic backstory as to why the game was cancelled in the first place. It turns out on March 13th, 2005, 6 key team members of the game tragically passed away in a plane crash. The game was cancelled due to the tragic event, but exactly 2 years later, a note arrived at Sony's office pleading with Sony to allow the public to play the unreleased game to enjoy the last thing the team ever got to work on, and it was signed by all 6 of the team members. This hit me like a ton of bricks, only for me to find out just after writing that whole tragic story that it's actually fake. Like, I get that it was meant to get some emotion out of players and get them to participate in some weird secret that the note talks about, but it's kind of weird to sell this story of a plane crash and members dying as if players weren't going to find the secret anyway. But aside from that weird stunt, Lost is a very cool piece of extra content. It's an unreleased sequel to an already amazing Twisted Metal game on top of another awesome Twisted Metal game. There's only 3 levels, but there's still a couple of unlocks like Goldtooth, Severed Sam, and an extra level. It's definitely a fun bonus game, and it's especially cool because of the fact it's an unreleased sequel. But as mentioned before, there's also an extra bonus material page for the game, which features 3 options. Sweet Tour is the first. It's a weird, janky kind of platformer, where you play as Sweet Tooth, who runs like an old man at 50 miles an hour, and after climbing up this weird sewage section, we see a clown head, and we can read a factoid when standing next to it. It tells us that Sweet Tour was actually going to be a part of the Twisted Metal Black sequel, and was intended to be a platforming segment of the game where you play as either Preacher or Sweet Tooth, and it was going to connect the levels together. But it was never finished, so after a lovely thank you from the Twisted Metal team, we go around looking for the rest of the clown heads, all 29 of them. And all of them not only have paragraphs of text explaining the development and how ideas change in Twisted Metal games, but it also shows never-before-seen concept art. This is where most of the history of Twisted Metal came from. There is so much cool stuff in here. Old concept art for Sweet Tooth, including a photo of the actor from Twisted Metal 1, and it's where most people learnt about Twisted Metal's original name, Urban Assault. And if I sat here talking about all of the cool insider information found in this cut platforming segment, I would be here all day, so I'm just going to move on to the next option on the list, Twisted Metal: The Dark Past. A full-on fucking documentary about the Twisted Metal franchise and how it came to be what it was up until that point. Not only that, but the fake Death Note in Lost also hints at a secret message found in the documentary, which, after deciphered by fans, it read, "Twisted Metal is coming on PS3. That is fucking awesome. And last, but very not least, Twisted Metal 1 Lost Endings. Remember how I said earlier in the video Twisted Metal 1's endings felt abrupt, and how I felt like there should be more to them? Well, that's because there was. The team actually spent around $80,000 to film these cheesy B-movie FMV endings, which is a laughably small budget. So small, in fact, that Crimson Fury's ending is shot in a POV perspective because they couldn't even afford to rent a Lamborghini for the day of shooting. And oh my god, These are a sight to behold. The acting is so bad, but luckily it's an instance of something that's so bad it's good. And it's insane that after more than 12 years after the first Twisted Metal game came out, fans were finally able to see the true endings to the game. Even though they are the same endings, it's cool to see these live action FMVs, and it's so sad that they were cut because they were too cheesy for the game, and then Twisted Metal 4 happened. All of this amazing bonus content is one of the reasons this is one of my favorite games in the series. The team put so much love and effort into this port when they honestly didn't have to. They could have just ported head-on to the PlayStation 2 and called it a day, but they didn't. And you could feel the love of the team just pouring out whenever you play this port of Twisted Metal head-on. It's not just a port of an already amazing Twisted Metal game, it is a love letter to fans of Twisted Metal, and 4 years later, as promised in the documentary, Twisted Metal would be coming to PlayStation 3, and it was going to be a complete reboot. Oh my god, here it is, a Twisted Metal reboot, another leap to the next generation of PlayStation. This is going to be amazing, a fresh coat of paint for the series, a game for the new era, a game that will not just attract new Twisted Metal fans, but will impress old ones as well. And the controls are completely different now. Really? A Twisted Metal reboot, and it doesn't use the same controls that are synonymous with the entire series up until this point. I know 4 did the same, but that was pretty early in the franchise's life, and it was also a completely different development team. This game was made by Eat Sleep Play, you know, because Incognito went defunct. And before I get comments on it, allow me to point out the elephant in the room. Why does my footage look like shit? Well, not only do I not own Twisted Metal on the PlayStation 3, but even if I did, I couldn't record footage of it because the PlayStation 3 has privacy protection that makes capture cards not work with it, unless you bypass the system, which I don't have equipment for that. And honestly, I was only able to play 5 minutes before my PS3 emulator shit the bed, and this happened so many times. So sadly, I wasn't able to complete this game, and I have to go off of footage I've seen from long plays. So right off the bat, one of the biggest oddities in this game is the fact that there's only 3 character stories. Sure, they're all live action, and the stories themselves are alright, and Preacher was planned for the game, but it feels kind of lacking in that field. I know the production quality is much higher, but with how infamous Twisted Metal was at the time, I think they could have done a little bit more with it. Sadly, the game is also quite disappointing. I'm not going to complain too much about the game because, Christ, I can barely play the thing for more than 5 minutes. But in my opinion, and from what I've heard, the levels are kind of similar. There are ones that are standout and cool, not to mention, from what I've heard, the boss fights are not great. From what I've heard, they are long, boring, and drawn out, but keep in mind, this is a Twisted Metal game I have barely played, so take what I say with a grain of salt. Something that I will praise this game for are its visuals. This is the best looking game in the series, by a long shot. I would comment some more on this game in terms of gameplay, and controls, weapons, story, and the boss fights. I'd share my own opinions on them, but I can't play much more of this game. Sometime in the future, I'm hoping I will be able to play this game and experience it properly, but for now, I just can't do that, so I'm not going to comment too much more on this game, and I am sorry for that. Before I end this video, I want to give my final thoughts on the Twisted Metal franchise as a whole, and quickly mention the new TV series. I planned for this video to come out a few days before the show did, but because I'm a lazy cunt and I procrastinated way too much, I'm pretty sure this video is going to be out, like, by the time the show's out. I haven't seen it yet, but if you have, leave a comment letting me know if it's good or not. As for my thoughts on the show, I've seen Tactical Bacon Productions' video, links in the description as well. He is an amazing Twisted Metal content creator, and honestly, in my opinion, he is the best Twisted Metal YouTuber on the platform. There are some minor things I'm not a big fan of, for example, how goofy Sweet Tooth is in this interpretation. Maybe it's his visuals being very similar to the PS3 game, and my brain kind of associating that game and that Sweet Tooth with this show. But there are also such cool little details that offer a lot of fan service, like the flight box from Twisted Metal 1 seems to be the primary focus of the show. So many cool characters and actors are shown, like Anthony Mackie as Roadkill, aka John Doe. So hopefully we'll get a cool story similar to Roadkill in Black. We see Outlaw, the Car of Shadow, whether it's Raven or Mortimer, it's still kind of cool. we even get a really short look at Twister, not sure if it's Amanda or Miranda Watts, but either way, it's really nice. And Darkseid is shown in an awesome massive car fight in what looks to be like a parking lot. And how could I forget Samoan Joe playing Sweet Tooth, also voiced by Will Arnett, aka Lego Batman, who is another great actor. Overall, this show has an amazing cast and a great selection of characters with mentions on the IMDb, like Mr. Slam and Preacher. Another thing I've noticed from the trailer is that there seems to be factions and gangs, which each episode is probably going to focus on a different gang, which, you know, isn't typical with Twisted Metal, but still, I think it sounds really cool, and it'll help make the show last a little bit longer. And honestly, I would love to see an episode where there's a biker gang run by Mr. Grimm. I do hope that this TV show is good though. I've heard David Jaffe's thoughts on it, and he seems optimistic, and so am I. I hope this show brings some more love and appreciation for Twisted Metal, because it fucking deserves it. I've only been a Twisted Metal fan for a couple of years now, but I still love the games and the whole series. I hope this show can bring in more fans, and hopefully we even get a new game, because honestly, I don't know how we did not see a Twisted Metal game during the boom of Battle Royale games back in 2018. They've done Twisted Metal online in the past for Black, so hopefully we'll see a return in the new game. And finally, I want to give one big thank you to David Jaffe for creating such a lovable game series. Even if he's only worked on half the games, at least they are the good ones. And he's given us such a unique universe of characters and such a simple yet fun game series that you can just relax and play. And if you made it to this point in the video, I want to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate a like and a subscribe, and let me know what you thought of the video in the comments below. It would mean a lot. My name is GeoG Nova, and I thank you for watching this Twisted Metal retrospective.